They didn't bark. They marched, trained as soldiers, armed with fangs. You've never heard of them, and perhaps that is exactly why this story needs to be told. Rome had an army of war dogs, not myths, facts, dogs that faced lions, protected generals and died as heroes. The most powerful empire in the world entrusted its rear to them. And today you will understand why. But get ready, because this story has no happy ending. It has forgotten truth, and it starts now. Imagine walking along a Roman road at dusk. Soldiers march in silence, banners flutter in the wind, and among the ranks, watchful eyes and sniffers move. Dogs. They were not mere animals. They were companions, sentinels, four-legged soldiers. In ancient Rome, the dog was not only valued, he was respected, honored. Since the times of the Republic, the Romans have recognized their value, not only as hunters and guardians, but as an integral part of everyday life and later of wars. Among these dogs, one stood out, the Canis Pugnax, a true canine titan forged for combat. Inheriting the strength of the Greek molossers, this race, now extinct, was born to guard, protect, and confront. With thick fur, powerful musculature, and unwavering courage, these dogs didn't just live with the legionnaires, they fought with them, and their loyalty was such that even when their owners fell, they remained, defending until their last breath. Canis Pugnax did not come about by chance. It was the result of carefully chosen crosses between Molossian dogs, originally from Greece, and other local breeds. The Molossians, giants with dense fur and ruthless spirit, already protected cattle, villages, and even caravans in mountainous regions. When they arrived in Rome, the Romans saw in them more than protectors. They saw them as warriors. Thus, they created their own lineage of dogs to serve as a personal guard, the surveillance of the camps, and, of course, the blood arenas. These dogs weren't just big, they were immense. About 60 centimeters tall, between 40 and 50 kilos of pure power and barks that echoed like thunder. Black, strong, loyal to death, they obeyed the command as legionaries. And unlike barbarian dogs, which attacked anyone, Pugnax kennels were trained to recognize smell, armor, voice, and even gestures, as if they were soldiers of flesh, blood, and prisoners. If this part of the story impressed you, imagine what is still to come. If you value rare content, with stories hidden in the shadows of time, then you're part of a legion that thinks differently. Show that you're with us. Leave the like now. This isn't just a click, it's a way to say, I want more stories like this. And if you're not already subscribed, sign up now and activate the bell. Because here we unearth the past with the strength of a Canis Pugnax, and you won't want to miss the next battle in the story. The use of dogs in warfare was not a Roman invention. People such as the Gauls, Germans, and Greeks had already used them in battles for centuries. The Romans, although masters in the art of adapting and perfecting, were slow to incorporate this resource. But when they did, as usual, they took the concept to the extreme. Each campaign, each conquered territory, brought new influences, including canines. The empire was a cultural sponge. It absorbed languages, gods, tactics, and also races. When invading regions such as Gaul and Britannia, Roman generals noticed dogs that they fought to the death to protect camps. They were so ferocious that even when their masters were already dead, they continued to fight. This awakened a new vision in Rome. These dogs would not only be used for spectacle in the arenas, they would be used for war. And there began the improvement of the Canis Pugnax, no longer just a show, but now a living and strategic weapon. Before, they were seen as soldiers. Roman dogs were stars of the show. In the arenas where blood flowed and people screamed, the Pugnax kennels enchanted and terrified. They participated in fights against bulls, rhinoceroses, prisoners, and even gladiators. They were trained to attack, to sniff, to obey, and more than that, to entertain. Fed selected meats, kept fit and cared for like true athletes, their value was so high that many owners would rather lose a fortune than see them injured. And this was not out of compassion, it was strategy. The dog's reputation was that of the owner. The animal's victory in the arenas brought prestige, honor, millionaire bets. But over time, generals began to notice. If a dog was capable of facing a lion or chasing a man to death, why not use it in a military campaign? The arena had forged not only one fighter, but a warrior worthy of Rome. Transforming an arena dog into a field warrior was no simple task. The battlefield required more than ferocity. It required intelligence, control, absolute obedience. The Canis Pugnax needed to distinguish friend from foe just by smell, tone of voice, or armor. For this reason, his training began early, as a puppy, and involved daily contact with legionnaires. They slept in the camps, ate with the soldiers, recognized every face of the garrison. They needed to know that orders from a commander could not be ignored, even in the midst of chaos. A dog that attacked the wrong could cost lives. They learned short commands, specific sounds, silent gestures, and more than anything, they knew when to move forward and when to retreat. Unlike barbarian dogs which attacked any stranger, Roman dogs were disciplined as trained soldiers. They obeyed not by instinct, but by honor. They were part of the legion, and his presence was as feared as a centurion's blade. To march with a Roman legion was to go through hell with discipline. From sunrise to sunset, the soldiers traveled up to 35 kilometers a day, carrying shields, spears, food, tents, and their faith. At the end of the journey, even before resting, they had to clear the land, dig trenches, erect fences, and erect the famous castra, temporary fortified camps. In this vulnerable moment, enemies could lurk. That's when the dogs came into the picture. Posted at the extremities, they sniffed the air, warned with deep barks, and were always ready for attack. The Pugnax kennels were the first to notice something strange. If an enemy approached at night, he would not escape his prey. They were like shadows with eyes. While the soldiers ate or slept, they kept watch. They were the eyes of the legion in the darkness, and they didn't just protect the camp, they protected the souls of men. For they knew that the real danger always came when one lowered one's guard. Canis Pugnax was not just a guardian, it was strategy. In campaigns in Gaul, Britain, and Germania, where the forest hid traps and enemies knew every trail, dogs became essential. They advanced ahead of scouts, sniffed traps, tracked down hidden enemies. When a group of legionnaires fell into an ambush, they were the first to leap through the bushes, facing spears and axes without hesitation. Some were let loose in bronze-studded leather armor, barking like living thunder, destabilizing the enemy line even before the main charge. Others were held until the last moment, released as a final blow in a surprise attack. There were reports of dogs advancing alone against entire groups, defending banners, attacking flanks, or protecting generals. In decisive battles, its psychological impact was as strong as its bite. For who saw a Pugnax kennel running towards you, he knew that Rome was coming after him. In ancient Rome, the value of a war dog surpassed that of many men. A well-trained Canis Pugnax could decide the course of a battle or save an entire legion. Therefore, they were treated as precious heritage. Many received special food, daily brushing, and even limb massages after long marches. Its owners knew if the dog was well, the troop was safe. In some cases, dogs were treated better than slaves, including being given beds made of fine straw and animal skins. It was common to see them next to officers as if they were miniature generals, attentive to every step, to every order. And when did they die? They were not buried as simple animals. Many were given graves worthy of soldiers, with tombstones, inscriptions, and even rituals. They were remembered with honor. and in the soldiers' memories they were never just animals. They were brothers in war, part of the legion. It departs from Rome. Interestingly, historical records on the use of dogs in the Roman legions are few. Writers such as Tacitus mention their presence in camps, especially in the more unstable provinces such as Germania, Britannia, and Thrace, where the risks of attack were constant. Their dogs served as guardians, trackers, and even helpers in capturing fugitives, but the battlefield, little is said. Poets, playwrights, and historians preferred to extol the deeds of men, swords, spears, fiery oratories, and were silent about the barking that announced danger. Maybe because they find it banal, or because they believed that associating Rome's glory with animals diminished its prestige. However, monuments speak. The column of Marcus Aurelius, erected in the 2nd century, clearly shows dogs among soldiers on the march. They were there, fought, they watched, died, and even when forgotten by books, they were set in stone. Where words were lacking, the eternal image remained. In the corridors of time, where emperors have become statues and soldiers just names on dusty scrolls, the dogs of Rome persist as almost invisible but indispensable figures. They didn't wield swords, but they knew when to bite. They did not wear breastplates, but protected them like walls. They did not seek glory, but died for it. And that made them unique. Each Canis Pugnax was a reflection of Rome itself, disciplined, resilient, fierce. In a world where survival was sculpted with blood, these dogs didn't just live, they served, loyal to the end, honored as soldiers, loved as children. And when their paws finally rested on the earth, many were buried among men, because in the heart of a legionnaire, there was no difference between a comrade with a shield or one with fangs. Rome's war dogs weren't just part of history, they were part of the soul of what made Rome eternal. And when we look at this almost forgotten history of the Canis Pugnax, we understand that Rome was not only made up of generals, emperors, and soldiers with swords drawn, it was also shaped by silent, loyal, and ferocious creatures who crossed forests, marched through deserts, guarded camps, and shed blood on battlefields and arenas. They did not speak, but obeyed with an almost supernatural precision. They did not write speeches, but their actions roared louder than any speaker in the Senate. Canis Pugnax symbolizes something many forget. The glory of an empire also depends on those who remain in the shadows, protecting while others shine. They were dogs, yes, but in the soul, they were as Roman as any centurion, and by remembering them today, centuries later, we give back some of the honor that was denied them by official records. They lived, fought, and died for Rome. Now, they live again in this story. And as long as we tell their exploits, they will never be forgotten. If this story touched you in any way, so the mission was accomplished, because by bringing to light the memory of these forgotten warrior dogs, we also rescue a value that the modern world has lost, loyalty to the end. And if I manage to give you something new, something you had never heard, repay me with a simple gesture. Leave your like now. It shows me that it's worth continuing to dig into these hidden histories, bringing to light what the books have erased. And more than that, subscribe to the channel, because transformation begins when we decide to learn, to see the world with different eyes. And here, you'll discover stories that change the way we see the past and ourselves. This is not just a video, it is a calling. And if you've come this far, it's because you feel like you're part of that journey too. So come with us, because there is still a lot to be revealed.